We are starting on time, no matter what, even if there's only 2 people watching. What's up, guys? How you doing? So this is the first time I've done a stream on this channel, and I have no idea how it's going to go. So we'll see. So the plan is today to talk a little bit about some of the footage that I have from the track and stuff like that of the Yaris, my 2007 Toyota Yaris that I take to track. For anyone who doesn't know, I competed in a series called the DRD series last year. Made a bunch of videos about it. Had some fun doing that. Wow, I don't get the chance to do second takes or anything on this because it's live, and I don't get to redo it if I fumble over my words. Actually, you know what? Actually, I do because it's my stream. So I'll. Hey, what's going on, everybody? So, welcome to the first stream of the channel. Was that a better start to this? Was that a better way to start this off? No, probably not. But like I was saying, we're gonna take a look at some footage from the track. Take a look at very particularly every single time that I went off track. And as much as this could be just to embarrass me. And look at all my shortcomings as a driver, I really think it is kind of important. I don't get to talk about it a lot in the videos about like what is actually happening in the car when you go off, what is getting you, like what you're trying to do and what actually happens. You're not trying to go off track. You're trying to stay on track. What's up, Alex? Alex is very familiar with the fact that I'm used to bigger streams. That's the weird part of like I was trying to set up everything very professionally and all that like I used to at work. And then it was like, oh, okay, well, this is just me in my living room, so it's fine, whatever. But yeah, so the idea is to not go off track. You want to stay on track. And it's like, what are you telling the car to do versus what does it actually do? So I kind of thought it'd be interesting to go through some of those offs and talk about why I went off, what was going on with the car at the time, what the setup of the car was like. And, we can analyze that and kind of learn together why the car was doing what it was doing, and talk about how either we've already fixed those issues as we progress, or talk about what I need to do as a driver to fix those issues. So let's go ahead and take our first look at it. All right, hold on. I want to come in here, pause this. Let me scroll this back. So this is the very, very, very first event of the 2021 TRD series. This was round 1. This was at Streets of Willow, going counterclockwise. So this is first lap of the day, first session, first lap. This is the out lap. Like you can see here, there's a guy waving me in. I'm in the cold pits. So going out on cold tires, and this is the first time that the Yaris had gone to track. It had done autocross before. We manual swapped it at the end of 2019. Gonna start the TRD series in 2020. 2020 happened, and then this was the beginning of 2021. So out onto the skid pad. Oh, actually, here, I'm gonna back it up because that's also something that I haven't really talked about. If you listen right as we start going into the bowl, that little like chirp, that is the tire rubbing on the inside right, front right, and it's evidence of how soft the suspension was because the car was kind of lowered, but not all that much. And just the bumps at Streets of Willow, the suspension is already kind of, or the tires were already rubbing a little bit. And this is before we'd gone to the 225 tires. So this is Toyo R1Rs 205 wide on 15 by 6.5 wheels, and lowered suspension, but not crazy lowered. The new suspension is way lower, and not as much camber as we needed, so it didn't tuck in as well. But here we go into the S's kind of after the bowl here. Little bit of a squirt of a straight so you can start to accelerate, and then brakes, lift off oversteer. Didn't even get a third of a lap before I spun it. So yeah, this was kind of like the first piece of evidence that the car was really, really, really undersprung, because it is so front heavy. All the weight shifts forward when you brake, and because the rear seats had been pulled out, now like the rear tires just essentially kind of want to come off the ground, and that's what they did. And like if we go back in this a little bit, let's see. So you get to hear, and by the way, this is a weird camera for this. This is like the first time I was setting up all these cameras for going to the track, and there's one with the gimbal in the back there that tried to keep up with the vibrations and just couldn't really handle it. So you get this little like squirt of a straight here that you can accelerate down, and then you're braking for this kind of a 90 right, a little bit, pretty much as near as makes no difference. And it's gripping, and then there's that little bump, and that's enough to unsettle the car and send it spinning around. That's my first time off on track. Yeah, so this was kind of the evidence that this was going to need a lot of work. Is that someone off as well there? Or no, it's the corner worker. Yeah, that's a corner worker there. But yeah, so that was the first event, and I think I ended the day on like a 2:19 or something. This is so. Was this the next one, or did I just not? So I tried to put these in order as they happened. So that was round one. Oh yeah, so I guess that means I didn't spin at Chuckwalla. Hey, I got through a track day without spinning. I was like, why don't I have footage from session 2, round 2? I guess I didn't spin. I only overheated and stripped a accessory belt and had to sleep out in the desert. I think I would have preferred spinning. So anyway, moving on to Laguna Seca. Laguna Seca is a super intimidating track because, the corkscrew in particular coming down that hill is super intimidating. Oh, this, by the way, I started keeping this kind of like this journal round about this trip around Laguna Seca. And so, keeping all the logs of exactly what was going on, trying to remind myself where I can brake and where I can make things happen, just so the next time I go back. So this was the first time out with the 225 tires on the 15 by 8 wheels. Still not the lowered suspension, still like the teen suspension. And this is turn 9, right after the corkscrew. So the corkscrew's here. You're coming up this. This is all a hill. You're coming up the hill. There's that little kink, and then you have to brake for this, and then you're going to start descending the hill here. So that's the corner that everybody is kind of like preparing themselves for. The corkscrew is like the feature that Laguna Seca has. And because you do that, you don't think as much about turn 9. because you've descended the hill and now you've started your descent, and you've had to brake hard for turn 8, and now it's downhill and acceleration, and you're barreling down the hill. And with this car, you are so close to being able to just floor it around turn 9, because you've slowed down so much for turn 8. It doesn't have that much acceleration. It's got lots of grip. So you're leaning it around turn 9. And I think if you get the line right, if you get the line absolutely perfect, you can just floor it. And if the balance is right and all that, like that'll be a goal. Next time I go back to Laguna Seca is like, can I no lift through turn 9? The problem is, though, if you get the line wrong in a rear-wheel drive car and you overdo it, the back's going to step out and it's going to kind of tail out, and you might start to oversteer a little bit. With a front-wheel drive car, though, you're going to understeer. You're going to not make it to like the outside of the corner. So if you hit the apex and then you drag out to the outside, if you keep it floored, you're going to end up in the gravel. But then if you lift off in a car with lift off oversteer, this is what happens. That tail comes out and now you're correcting, and then it just spins. It just spins right around. So you've really got to know exactly what you're going to do before going into it, and then do that. So experimenting is a little tough with the balance of the car. As the car gets better balanced, that's going to be easier. But ultimately, this was kind of a scary spin. We saw like 3 cars hit the wall at this track weekend, and one of them actually like reached out to me later. Like I was on a forum after I'd posted the video, and someone was like, "Oh yeah, it's really weird seeing my crashed Veloster on a video like this." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, that was you! You were my like cautionary tale for a second there." I was making sure that I didn't know how the cars crashed, right? Like I didn't get to watch any of the crashes or see any of that. All I saw was 2 cars come back on a flatbed, or like one was already back because it had crashed the day before. One came back on a flatbed in the middle of our sessions, and then one was in the wall during my last session. Like I came around a corner, there was a yellow flag, and there was just an S2000 in the wall. So like I never saw how each happened, but like, the second that mine started to let go on turn 9, I was like, is this it? Is this the end? Is this how it happened? So this was, like immediately, cause when I spun here, you see, I end up on this little side road. Like here, I'll back this up a little, that too far back. But like I go off track across the dirt and end up on this little like side road here. This is the entrance to the cold pits. And anytime you spin at a track day like this, you need to go to the pits, so that the not marshals, but the organizers of the event can look at your car, just make sure that you're not dragging a bunch of dirt, you're not suddenly leaking fluid, all the parts are there, like you didn't lose a bumper or something like that. And so you're going to have to come into the hot pits anyway. So I could have rejoined the track, but then I would have immediately had to go to the hot pits. So I ended up in the cold pit, off ramp. So I figured I'd just go through here anyway, because this just leads to the paddock, and then I could go back onto the hot pits via the paddock. Your adrenaline spikes for a second, and then this is like the calm, like, okay, I'm going to take the long way back. I'm going to, cool it a little bit. Yeah. No, I totally meant to do that. I love how many G4 people are in the chat, by the way. I know that it's kind of like all just you guys, which is okay. I do miss Master Control. I was watching, what was it? I was watching Vibe Check the other day. just no, you know what? I was watching Vibe Check the other day, and all of a sudden I stopped watching Vibe Check because it froze. Because you guys lost connection on YouTube. Yeah, like 30 minutes in, not even like 15 minutes in, just lost connection. I don't know what happened in the rest of it. No, I kept on watching. Hi guys, Devin, Jesse, Mike, and Alex. Good to see you guys. Miss working there. But yeah, so this is, which one is this now? Oh my goodness, Devin's subscribed. And I didn't know, by the way, I didn't know that Alertbox works on, I said Jesse. I didn't know that Alertbox works on YouTube, and it does. This is like very much learned everything about streaming on Twitch, and then started to build up a YouTube channel. And then I was like, I'm not going to just build a Twitch channel just for if I occasionally stream. But yeah, so here we are on YouTube doing the thing that Twitch is designed for. But yeah. So this one is, this was round 4 back at Streets of Willow. This is clockwise this time. Again, got my logbook. So this is, that's the course. This is still with the 225 tires. I don't think we changed much for this. The only thing is if you look at the asphalt here, it's going to be tough to see because it's 2 different camera angles, but I'm gonna try and do this. Where am I? 131. So if you look at the asphalt here, and then you look at the, well, yeah, you can't really see it, but yeah, you can kind of see it. If you look at the asphalt here, so this is round 1. This was before the track had been resurfaced. And now if I come back to here, this is after the track has been resurfaced. So you can see that this is super smooth track. Everybody was doing times that were like 2 to 3 seconds faster than they had initially done, or like their personal bests. And I'm talking about people who are driving so consistently that they don't really get personal bests anymore. If they do, it's by like a 10th, because they're just maximizing what's in their car and their ability. And those people were improving by 2 seconds. So this was a big day, and I ended up going from like a 139 to a 133. So huge improvement this day. So like just chasing the improvement the entire time. And this one, so this is kind of a long clip actually. But this is coming down, and this just starts to go into like a bunch of S's, a bunch of like left, right, left, right. Coming up here, this is braking for 5. What is that, 5? And 4. That's 5. That's 6. And then here we go. So yeah, so it's through these S's. This car almost doesn't have to lift off the throttle. I can pretty much keep it pinned through all these S's. And so you're accelerating. Other cars are having to brake because they're heavier or they don't have as much grip. And this is where the Yaris really starts to catch other cars. And so you start to get greedy at the very end of this because you do have to brake at the end of this because you're going into a bowl. So this is 7, and then you can see around there like the cars are going around the bowl. And then you have to brake here. You have to. I don't care how much grip your car has or how slow it is coming up to this. You got to brake. And you got to brake enough. And if you don't, you're going to apex and then just drag out wide and go across the dirt and hit the wall. Are you going to hit the wall? No, just barely. Just that was the closest I'd gotten to the wall up until that point. Like my dad saw that clip and he was like, "Oh gosh, are you sure you don't want to put a roll cage in this car?" I'm like, "Yes, Dad, I do want to put a roll cage in this car, but the roll cage costs more than the car itself." I have, you know, am I going to double the money on this car to make it 150 pounds heavier? And then, you know, save my life? Actually, now that I finished that sentence, maybe I should. But yeah, so this is a pretty scary one. But basically, because the bowls are the trickiest corner for me. Like, I haven't really figured it out, and I think it is hard for front wheel drive in general, but I personally think it is, like, it's a very hard thing for me because it's like a long sweeper. You're not necessarily finding like a single apex. Maybe you have to double apex. You have to figure out how much speed you can carry through the whole thing. And like, maybe you want to go out wide and open up the corner so that you're, you know, you can carry more speed, or maybe you want to stay tight because it is such a long corner and you kind of want to like do a mix of both. It's like a out, in, out, or an in, out, in. Everyone kind of does bowls differently. Every car does bowls differently. Like, this is where you'll see the most differentiation in lines, I think. And I haven't ever really gotten them right. So this is usually like the place where I find myself experimenting the most. And this was an experiment that went wrong. That is an incorrect experiment. But, you know, clutch in, the engine's still running, and then just making your way across the dirt back onto the track. So one of the main things is, like, I've gone off a couple times now, and, you know, if I hadn't, I wouldn't have enough content to make a stream about it. But the thing that I noticed the most is, like, there's like a bit of a discipline of coming back on track and not, you know, dragging a bunch of dirt and dust, because, you know, you go through the dirt, you know, your tires are now covered in dirt, and like just figuring out the way to blend back in onto the track in a way that you are going to put dirt on the track. Like, that's just part of how it's going to happen. Like, there's no real way to deal with that. The biggest thing is that, like, you're going to have to try and put dirt on a part of the track that is not going to mess people up that much. So I don't want to put it like right on the exit of a corner. You know, I want to come down the straight a little bit here and then just put dirt in the place where people aren't really going to be fighting grip all that much. So this next one is this is Chuckwalla. This is technically not from the TRD series, or actually it is. So there's two TRD series. There's a SoCal and a NorCal. And no, sorry, this is Button Willow. I keep saying Chuckwalla instead of Button Willow. I do it in all my videos when I talk about Button Willow. I immediately say Chuckwalla, so Button Willow is a track out near Bakersfield. Chuckwalla is a track out in Desert Center. They're kind of similar in that they sit in the middle of this, you know, flat, deserty area. The configurations are sort of similar. Actually, let's see if I can. The configurations aren't similar at all now that I look at them. But they you know, they have similar features in that, like, they have sweepers and they have like one or two, you know, rises that are just like everything's pretty flat except this like one like dip and rise. Yeah, so I mix them up all the time. This was the NorCal TRD series because they had done an exchange event at Chuckwalla. Like, you know, all the NorCal guys came down to Chuckwalla in Desert Center to drive with us, and then we went up to them in for Laguna Seca. Because of those two events, I was actually sitting in like fourth place in the NorCal TRD series because no one else in my class went to Laguna Seca. So I ended up getting like 10 points. That pretty much is the only reason that I have any acclaim in the TRD series, is that, like, you know, you look at the timing sheets and you're like, oh, that little Yaris got first place at Laguna Seca. It's like, yeah, because there was nobody else there. I could have done a 4-minute lap and still gotten first place. Yeah, so they were doing Button Willow. Button Willow is kind of like the track that's the halfway point of, like, it's kind of in the NorCal series and it's kind of in the SoCal series. And they were doing it like 2 weeks before SoCal was doing it for their finales. NorCal was doing their finales there. So I was like, all right, look, this will be a perfect way to practice for the SoCal finals by doing the NorCal finals, and maybe Hail Mary if nobody shows up, and you know, like, maybe I could even get a podium. I didn't, but actually I think I podiumed at the event, but not enough to, like, make it into the podium for the series. That seems right, something like that. I'll have to check it at some point. But, you know, got to practice this track. And so this is first lap out, cold tires. Again, just like that Willow Springs beginning. This is camera mounted on the back, which I don't know why I did it this time. I think it was like, I just need different angles, and I know I'm not going to do my fastest lap first session, so I'll put the camera on the back. So it's a bit of a weird angle, but yeah. So, you can hear that a little bit, you know, going over that corner. Let's see if I can scrub back to that. Like, you can hear the revs, like, peak for a second. You hear that? So that is the inside tire hitting that and lifting. And because of the open differential in the wheels there, it will want to send power to the place, the path of least resistance. So if you load up one side and you know, the inside tire has less and less weight on it, as you go over a bump, it'll for a second get more weight and then suddenly get less, like even less. And that, so that you could hear that in the revs, like the power's trying to go to where the path of least resistance, which is not what you want. You actually want the outside wheel to be, that has the most grip, to be getting the power. So changing a differential would help. Changing a differential on a front wheel drive car is also really, really, really hard. You have to take apart the entire gearbox. And if I was going to do that, I would change lots of things about the car. I would change the open differential to an LSD. I would change the final drive for better acceleration. I would stop my car from crunching every time I go into third gear. It would be a big project, and it would basically be the transmission out, and it would be out for a month. And I think that doing it would bump me up in class in the TRD series, so I'd be competing with faster cars if I did it. So not super inclined to do it, but it would definitely make a difference. If I was just trying to build this car and not worrying about like where I was in the actual class, then I would try it. But anyway, we can look at the actual spin. So this is... so passing a car, this, I'll say this before we even get to the spin. Passing a car is where I started to spin the most at this track. Like, just the nature of passing a car. You know, you're on your line, maximizing and minimizing each, acceleration point, each angle. And the way they do it at track days like this is, you are not allowed to pass a car, at least at my skill level. You are not allowed to pass a car unless they acknowledge that you're there and point out their window which side you can pass on. So they set up the pass for you. They acknowledge it, and they don't leave the racing line, because the idea is if you're faster, then you also probably have more skill, and you have the skill to get off of the racing line and then get back onto it. So you're kind of making a suboptimal line. So it is going to slow you down. Like, even if they give you like this perfect point by where you don't even have to lift off, you're getting off the racing line, so you are going to slow down. The problem that I kept having is every time I'd get off the racing line and then try and go into the next corner, I would come at it at such a weird angle because I was coming from a space that I wasn't normally. And I know I'm trying to illustrate this by like moving around my microphone, and that's not really how best to do this. But the point is that like I would always make the corner a little worse because I was passing somebody, and then immediately spin, and they would just pass me right back. I think this is kind of one of those instances. That pass is pretty early, but I know this is bus stop for sure. So barely have to lift there, and then this one you have to brake for. And I was like, how much do you have to brake for it? Turns out more than that. Didn't keep the engine spinning, it sounds like. And now everybody's going through this like cloud that I created here. And now, so this is very beginning, first lap, cold tires, so everybody's still kind of in a line. So everyone gets to see who made that cloud of smoke. Yeah, get back on eventually. So this is kind of more what I was talking about spinning. Actually, no, this one's just a normal spin. This is still at Button Willow. This is same day. This day. So that first spin was session 1. I think this is also session 1. I spun like 4 times this day. So it was really like a weird kind of like, I don't know what's going on. Is this track just like the bane of my existence? Am I just pushing too hard? Is the track really dusty? Because it is out in the middle of the desert. It does get layered with a lot of like you can see it's almost sandy. The surface of the track. And as people go off, they bring on more dust as like the wind picks up. It is, I'm making excuses. Just watch this spin. Yeah. So not the most terrible off. Again, it's that thing of like you're going in, you're braking. If you brake too hard, the while turning, the back is going to want to lift, and if it lifts, it wants to go faster than your front wheels are because your front wheels are still braking, and you spin. So like that wasn't even like a full spin. It was just kind of like a drift that happened to go off track. I think I might have even gotten away with not coming into the pits to check that one over just because it was a quick off and on. But that's not the last time that I spun at that corner. Yeah. So this is all kind of coming from the same issue in the car, right? This is as you brake, the car wants to lean forward, the back gets light, and if you give it any kind of steering angle and you're still braking, the car wants to over-rotate. So this is all the teen coilovers, which were 3K in the front and 2K in the rear. Very, very soft, designed for street use, not designed for track use, and also designed for a car that still has the rear seats. So this issue kind of got solved with the new suspension, but every single time we were doing this, it was like, okay, I know I need to change the suspension. I'll do as much as I can to like counter this, softening the rear dampers as much as possible, taking off the rear sway bar, taking as much weight as I can out of the front of the car, but ultimately the fix is new springs. So at this point, we did not yet have those new springs, and I have not gone back to Button Willow in this configuration with those new springs. Yeah, so that was a turn 1 spin at Button Willow. Did I show a picture of Button Willow? This is Button Willow. This is, I think, the longest track that we run in the TRD series. It's a pretty popular track, but it has the most corners to memorize and all that. Here, I can make this easier. I know how to stream. 408. There. That's button willow. Everything's reversed. All my notes are, no, is it not reversed? Okay, no, it works. But yeah, so you can see it's got a bunch of little kinks and stuff like that, and it's got 19 corners, whereas Laguna Seca, famous Laguna Seca, has, I think, 12? 11. So in a day, when you go to Laguna Seca, you have 11 corners to memorize. Turn 1 is barely there, and turn 7 is barely there. So really 9 corners to memorize, and button willow has 19. So it takes a while to learn button willow. This video is going to start over again, and we're going to go back to where we were. Okay. So this is an inside angle. Sometimes, okay, I don't have my batteries don't last the whole time. I move cameras around all the time, and sometimes it's just like I'm going to put the camera wherever I can to get the footage, because or pull whatever footage I have, because I think like a few times the GoPro has died because it ran out of battery or ran out of card space. I use the GoPro on the outside of the car usually. Hey, Jarkler subscribed. That's awesome. Dude, good to see you. How you doing? How's every little thing? I have more respect for anime now than the first time we met. Yeah, cool to see you. Thank you for subscribing. Yeah, this was coming into, where are we? Okay, so this is coming onto the front straight at Button Willow. And coming down here, this is like second or third session of the day. Improving throughout the day. And, you know, you kind of get hungry for more improvement. So you can see ahead of me that white car just went out to the left to pass the car ahead of him. The car ahead of him is a S197 Mustang, owned by a friend of mine, but he runs a car control clinic at like a driving instruction school for tracks. So he has a student in the driver's seat. He's in the passenger seat. And I think he is kind of promoting, it's like, hey, give the point buys, get yourself some clear tracks so you don't have to worry about everybody else around you, which is great practice. And it's a good thing for beginning drivers to know. The problem is that I should not have taken this point buy, because even though they're letting me buy, I still don't have all that much horsepower and acceleration. So you can see how late in the straight this pass comes. Like, we're almost at the end of the straight here. I'll back it up just so you can see how long this straight is. We're in the last clip. Here we go. So this is the start of the straight, and this is that BMW ahead of me that gets the point by, or it looks like some other car got the point by first, and you see how long the straight is. This is like, okay, the straight is for this passing opportunity. You can kind of make sure that people can get by in here. I've been talking like nonstop for half an hour. I'm not used to that. Yeah, Jerk, you got the whole production gang in here. I feel like all y'all should be at work. Yeah. Anyone who's not from G4, who's watching this, should check out Attack of the what day is it? Thursday? Attack of the Show later today, after all of this. But anyway, so front straight, long front straight, and now like I get the point by there, but also that's when they start braking. They're braking for the turn that is coming up next. And I should have just not been greedy, not taken this point by, because now I have to brake for the same turn, but I'm not on the outside of the track where I normally am. I'm on this kind of like inside, which means that the turn is now going to be tighter. And because of that, it doesn't happen. We just start going around and try and save it, then don't save it, and get dusty. Woo! That's dusty. And I'm pretty sure it took me a while to clean out all the dust from the car for that. But yeah, so I fell into this trap a lot with this car because people will give you the point buy, and a lot of times you're told to stop accelerating so that the other person can pass you. But with a 108 horsepower Toyota Yaris, people often have to like actively brake to let me by. Once we get into the corners, I'll be gone if they're truly like giving me a point by because they're slower. But the straightaways is not where I have the advantage, and the straightaway is the easiest place to give somebody a point by because it's hard, in the middle of the corners. So yeah, the straightaway is not where I have the advantage, and people either have to like back out more than they think they need to, and they have to let me by, or I just have to not be greedy with actually like taking every point by that I get and be like, no, we'll set this up a little better because you let 3 cars go by already, yeah. So hold on, I saw a question here. Stupid question maybe, but why do you have to have the windows down on such a dusty track? That is a great question. The reason is because in this category, the way you communicate with other drivers is by pointing out the window. So if someone is giving you, someone is saying that you can go by, so this is not wheel-to-wheel racing, this is time attack. You're trying to set the fastest lap. And it doesn't do you any good to actually like battle wheel to wheel with people. You kind of want to get your slice of open track to do your lap. So if someone's coming up behind you and they're faster than you, you point out the window to indicate that you've seen them and they can go by and take the slice of track ahead of you so that you have free space. You don't have to worry about them. They don't have to worry about you. And you guys can both go do your fast lap. That is the main reason for having your windows down in this. And even in like the higher classes where all the drivers are kind of trusted to be able to openly pass each other, the point buys are still encouraged. This is definitely a cheaper and less risky way to get into motorsport. Because if you do wheel-to-wheel racing, you need a roll cage, you need a whole bunch of fire suppression, you need the automatic shutoffs within the whole car, so that like if you crash and you're knocked unconscious, like a marshal can come over and shut off the car from the outside. There's a series called the 24 Hours of Lemons, not Le Mans, Lemons, which the idea is that you go and racing in a $500 car. The problem is that every car in that actually costs like $6,000 or $7,000 because of all the safety stuff that is then added to it. So it's originally a $500 car, and then you add all the safety stuff. But because they're wheel-to-wheel racing, that is a lot of safety stuff that needs to get added. I've been looking into like a SCCA spec roll cage for the Yaris, and apart from being over 100 pounds in a car that's already like its only advantage is its lightweight, it would be like $3,000 worth of welding and metal and expertise that I don't have, so I have to pay somebody else to design it, build it, and install it. Especially when it comes to safety, like I can get by with like I put new suspension on my car and it like kind of is suboptimal. But when it comes to safety stuff, I'm like, okay, I want to make sure this is done properly. Let's move on. is, so we're still at Button Willow, but this is the next, like a month later at Button Willow. So I mentioned that I went for the NorCal TRD series finale, and then I went again for the SoCal TRD series finale. So the idea was, like, I'll learn the track at the NorCal finale, and then I'll go again at the SoCal finale when it counts for, like, my class, and I'll see if I can improve, because now I know the track a little bit better. Like I said, this track has 19 turns, whereas Laguna Seca has 11, so it takes you a little longer to learn this one anyway. So this has kind of got a bit of a long setup. Like, you can see this, I'll turn down the noise of the wind a little bit on this. But so I'm gaining on this FRS here, and even through the corners here, I don't have to brake at all for these corners. These are flat out for the Yaris. I have so little acceleration, and I have so much grip that I'm foot to the floor through here. So that's, and like even through like the bowl before, you can see, you know, gaining on this car as we're going. So he kind of knows that, like, I'm getting there. And so we get onto this straight. This is just a short straight before the last turn. So we're kind of coming up to the straight that we were just on for the last clip. And so there's the point by, and then this is the same situation that we just saw. This is, okay, I got the point by on the straight. Now I have to start braking for the next turn, but I'm not where I normally am. I'm not where I want to be. I'm not out to the very outside of the track. I'm kind of in the middle of the track, which means that this turn is going to be a little tighter. The other thing is that you try and, at least this plays in my mind, is that, like, you want to accelerate to make sure that you get past the person so that when you rejoin the racing line, you're not cutting them off. You don't want to do that. But you still want to rejoin the racing line at some point. And if you're accelerating slower than they think you should be, because they have 200 horsepower and you have 100 horsepower, you know, you don't want to, they might not be expecting you to come across. So I always try and, like, you know, make sure that I'm well clear of them before coming back onto the racing line. The problem is that getting well clear of them might take you past your comfortable braking point, and you end up with a situation like this. Turning in, that was the apex. Over there, didn't make it, definitely went wide, and then out, dodge that puddle, spin, pirouette, keep the engine running. So yeah, one of the things, like, it doesn't matter too much in cars like this, just to keep the engine running, because it's, you know, you have a starter motor, but in a lot of, like, serious racing series, they don't even have a starter motor on board, because they get started in the pits and they never have to start it again. So keeping the engine running is very important. But also you want to put, for manual cars, you want to put the clutch in as early as possible, because you want to disengage the drive to the wheels very quickly. This, actually, we can look at this and see an example of it. It's like the car's driving forward, so the wheels are spinning forward, and that's connected to the engine, directly connected to the engine through the transmission. And as we spin around, boom, right here, all of a sudden, the wheels are being told to drive backwards, being told by the ground to drive backwards. And if all of that makes it through to the engine is then going to be told to essentially spin in reverse, which it will not want to do. So you want to put the clutch in as soon as possible to avoid that. All the G4 guys, if you go and ask our PA Aaron what happens when you don't put the clutch in, when you spin at 140 miles an hour, ask him what happened to his BRZ. Yeah, so that'll save your transmission, that'll save your engine, and it'll mean that you can get the car moving quicker. then again, like getting around all these puddles. So this is interesting because it had rained the day. No, this is the last event of the TRD series at Button Willow. So this was foggy all during the morning. Normally you get like 4 sessions during an event like this, maybe 5, depending on what time of year and what time the sun goes down. This one, the first 2 sessions were completely canceled due to fog. So this was 4th session, but for everybody it was kind of 2nd session. So this was late in the day. This was my only chance to do fast laps, and that's kind of, you know, spun because you get too greedy. And then joining the track again somewhere where that dust isn't going to mess up somebody else. So this, I said in the the video that this is going to be all the spins from the 2021 TRD series. That's not actually true. These next ones are from 2022, the first event of the 2022 season. I didn't think of a good way to put that in the title, so it just says 2021. Yeah, so this is going into... This is Button Willow again. Yeah, Button Willow. We remember this course. This is interesting, though, because this is counterclockwise. Exact same track, exact same course, exact same layout, but going the opposite direction. And this is not something that is common at Button Willow. At Streets of Willow, they run the course, backwards and forwards all the time. One week you'll go, it'll be one week you go to be the other, and people set pretty much the same lap times when you do that. With Button Willow, because all the corners are now increasing, or not all the corners, but a lot of the corners are now increasing radius instead of decreasing radius, it takes more skill to meter yourself through the corner. Because the corner is getting tighter and tighter and tighter as you go. When the corner is opening up as you go, you put your foot to the floor or figure out the rate of acceleration that you want. So maybe it's not foot to the floor, maybe it's 3/4 throttle or whatever it is for your car. But you figure that out, and then you can hold that through the corner. Because as you're getting faster, the corner is opening up more, and you don't need as much angle in your in your turn in. So you pick your acceleration, or in the Yaris's case, as much acceleration as it has, foot to the floor, and you're unwinding the wheel as you go. That's normal Button Willow. Counterclockwise, you're going into those corners backwards. So now they're getting tighter and tighter as you go. You can't just coast into them, or you can, that would get the job done, but anyone who's like figuring out how to not coast into them is going to go faster. So the balance here is a lot harder, and most people are about 2 seconds slower on a counterclockwise Button Willow than they are on a clockwise Button Willow. By the way, everything that I'm saying, absolutely everything that I'm saying, should be taken with a grain of salt, because I have like literally a year's experience doing this. And as you can see, I spin often. So, yeah, I'm trying to learn from my mistakes and trying to rattle off what I have learned from talking to other people who explained to me what happened when I made my mistakes. Yeah. So this is Button Willow. This is also new suspension. This is the new BC Racing coilovers. Remember we talked about that lift-off oversteer problem of the car wanting to pitch forward under heavy braking, or even just when you lift off the throttle. So this went from 3K springs up front and 2K in the rear to 9K up front and 5K in the rear. So stiffer overall, and then the front even stiffer to kind of like prop the engine up as you brake so that it doesn't want to nosedive. The problem with that change in suspension is that this means that now everything happens. Think of it like there's like spring frequency. You know, if you imagine the frequency at which a spring oscillates, that is probably directly proportional to the spring's resistance. So now that I have a spring that's over twice the resistance, it's going to oscillate twice as fast. I don't know if the math exactly works out to be that, but let's just say it is. So what that means is if the car leans one way and then like counters and balances and wiggles, that wiggle is now happening twice as fast. So if you make if you turn in for a corner and realize that you're kind of like over turned in, or you need to overcorrect or something like that, and you need to catch what is about to happen, because if you hold whatever you're doing, it's going to go wrong, and you need to correct. Because of that increased spring rate, you need to correct that much faster, because this is now oscillating at a higher frequency. Therefore, you have less time to catch any mistakes. And this car went from something that theoretically, like, that I would be happy to throw friends in, to, oh no, now this is a serious race car. I don't want anybody else to drive it, unless they're like way more talented than me. Because not only does it have the suspension of a serious race car, it's probably set up pretty suboptimally, because I haven't really dialed it in yet. So even with a good driver, I would very much like preface like, hey, by the way, this is really front heavy. It's not balanced. You know, don't take it easy, because I'm not setting super fast laps in them. I'm probably setting fast laps for a Yaris, but you know, there are definitely drivers that would know better about how to handle this, but also don't deal with a car that's this poorly balanced, because I'm both a slow driver and a bad mechanic. Yeah, so coming into this corner, this is pretty close to the end of a lap at Button Willow, and this becomes an increasing radius bowl type corner, and you come off of a straight. The thing that the thing that threw me off with this corner, let me get back to where we were. The thing that threw me off with this corner is that it's it doesn't really have an apex coming around in this configuration. So here it is. It's this guy down here. So normally on the clockwise configuration, this would be your front straight. This is the corner that I kept on spinning at. You do a little straight here, and then you'd have to kink in, figure out all this nonsense, and then accelerate out up here. The other way around, this is your straight, and now you're figuring out how to slow down for this corner that's getting tighter and tighter and tighter, and like you actually have to apex like all the way out here. This was first session, and I kind of just didn't think of it as a corner and just went straight. And going right for the wall. Very, very close to the tire wall. I'm very happy that I don't have a high horsepower car, because if I did, and I had that lack of braking and that lack of control and that lack of awareness, I would have hit that tire barrier. So yeah, it's a great car to learn in, because it's hard to be in much trouble. But yeah, so let's see if I can back that up a little bit. And you know, the spin itself is a little sensational, but if we look around, like you can kind of see there's a car out there like above the wing mirror, and you can see just how far out you actually have to get around that corner before you start heading the other way. Then this is headed into a corner called Riverside. So that's here. You're coming up this straight, and then you're into this. I can't do this because it's backwards. You're coming into this curve. So normally on the clockwise configuration, you come from this little like kink, which is a braking zone, and then you accelerate. I can't do this. This is reversed. You accelerate. Holy shit. You accelerate. Jesus. You accelerate up this. Holy crap. And then that kind of opens up as you go, and then you make it down the straight. I gave up. But then the other way around, you're coming off of that straight, and you're going into a corner that kind of closes up as you go. So you have to figure out how to do that. And my thought was, so this is one of the first times I was coming into it. So my thought was, why don't I go way on the outside coming into it and kind of stay closer to the outside and tuck in as I'm going, right? That way I can, if I can feel myself tightening up, like if I can feel the car going in, that means that I'm slowing down and like I'm getting the grip to like be able to make it to the apex. That was my theory. The problem is that if you're not on the racing line, whatever that racing line is, you're on a part of the track that doesn't get as much use. It's where the excess rubber has been discarded, and it actually becomes a little bit dustier, a little bit more particulate on the ground, and there's less grip out there. So even if it might be the right line for you, because I'm out here and not closer to the inside of the track, there's dust out here, there's discarded rubber out there, and the car just goes loose. And if it goes loose, you get off the throttle. And if you get off the throttle in a front-wheel drive car, the weight goes to the front. And if it's the back that went loose and you're trying to correct it by getting off the throttle, the back gets even more loose. So this is part of why people say that rear-wheel drive cars are the ones that you want for track use. Because if you back off the throttle, the car comes under control again. With a front-wheel drive car, if you back off the throttle, there are instances where the car gets more out of control because you stopped accelerating. This is part of the like dichotomy of a balanced car. Yeah, and it didn't end well. I was pretty hard hit to the dirt. And that 8.6 sounded really cool going by. But yeah, so that is the last track day that I did. That was the last spin that I had, and that's the last embarrassing moment I have to share with you guys. My G4 family, thank you so much for hanging out and checking this out. I know you guys have a very cool show starting up right now. So I can end it here, actually, because I have an event to get to in Long Beach that has nothing to do with a new hatchback that they're announcing. Or does it? If there was a car that was a combination of my two cars, if there was something that combined a 100 horsepower front wheel drive car and a 200 horsepower rear wheel drive car, and it made a 300 horsepower all wheel drive car, that would be cool if that existed. And it was made by Toyota. I don't know of anything like that currently at 4:00 today. Maybe in 2.5 hours I'll know something about that. Yeah. So thank you for hanging out. If this is something that we want to do again, I'm totally down to do it. I want to stream from the track at some point. I want to figure out how to do that. But every track is in the middle of the desert where there's no cell reception, and it's really hard to stream from the track. There are a couple channels that do it. I'll talk to Jake and Bake and some of the people who figured it out. G4 sponsored IRL backpack stream says what? But yeah. Seriously though, guys, like we'll put Gina in the passenger seat and just make it a stream. We're done. Yeah, we've solved it. We've solved world hunger, and we've solved the streaming crisis. Guys, thanks for hanging out. I'm gonna end it here because I'm gonna get ready to head over to Long Beach. But this was fun. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thanks.